All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So the Jets are 0-5. It has been absolute torture to watch this football team through the first 5 weeks of the NFL season. There's problems all over the place. I understand, of course, it's going to take time. Aaron Glenn did not inherit, a great situation here. But nevertheless, there are just issues all over the place. And so there was a story that came out a couple days back where an anonymous NFL executive spoke to Ralph Vacchiano. And basically what he said in regards to the New York Jets is the expectation is that this Jets team, they're going to be big time sellers at the trade deadline. Right now, obviously, this team is comprised mostly of, Joe Douglas players here. And as much heat as Darren Mougey has been getting, a lot of his acquisitions, a lot of Mougey players have actually worked out for the most part, right? Brandon Stevens is on the uptick, which is awesome. I mean, right now he's playing like the best corner on the entire roster. Sweet. Armand Membu's literally playing like one of the best right tackles in football. We had such a massive need at defensive tackle. Harrison Phillips has been, I feel like, as expected, not extraordinary, not elite, but I think he's good enough. I mean, I look at Juwan Briggs. He's, in my opinion, an awesome rotational defensive tackle up to this point. Mason Taylor's starting to come into his own. And so in the first couple months of Darren Mougey's reign as general manager, he's been able to knock out some positions of need, right? So he's added some pretty good players. Has he been perfect? No, right? There has not been any sort of action with safety. Andre Sisco up to this point has not, in my opinion, panned out. I mean, you look at the wide receiver room, it's completely desolate. I think one of the major issues with this football team is the lack of edge depth. Guys that can set the edge, guys that can get after the passer, get in the backfield on a consistent rate. It's just simply not happening. I mean, McGregor's taking so many snaps. Michael Clements is taking so many snaps. Again, you never want to look at a general manager and say, okay, you have, 8, 9 team needs, and you're going to just hit A+ across the board in one free agency class that, by the way, was not all that great, and one draft class. It just simply doesn't happen. But here's the deal, right? If the Jets decide to be sellers at the trade deadline, it is the smart thing to do. Now, there is a small piece of me that will just, I'll have a lump in my throat. If the New York Jets trade a couple players on this roster, that is just my head says, okay, it's probably the smart thing to do. But my heart is just man, I'm a fan of these guys. I've been watching them grow over these last couple of seasons, and just the position that they're in, it just sucks, right? It's going to suck to see some of these players go, again, if the Jets decide to be sellers here. And so let's ask the question, why would the Jets be sellers? Well, quite simply, they're not a good football team. They have a lot of expiring contracts, guys that I just don't feel like are going to be back with this Jets team, and they could potentially benefit another team in a better system, or maybe a team that's win now playoff mode. And then last but not least, not only are we just not a good football team, but we're winless. We're winless up to this point. That is an absolute joke. No one really expected the Jets to be all that good this season, but to be the actual worst team in the league record-wise through 5 weeks, not many people expected that. Okay, so does it make sense? If you take your fandom out of it, does it make sense for a winless football team to hang on to specific veterans that are on expiring deals? No, it just simply doesn't, as much as we love some of these players. So let's go down the list. Let's talk about some of these players. I actually wrote down a bunch of names here that I feel like could be trade candidates. So the first one, right? Elephant in the room, Breece Hall. Breece Hall is on the last season of his deal. He probably won't be back with this football team. Does he get moved? There are a bunch of teams that need help at running back. There are a bunch of teams that have, some running back question marks due to injury and whatnot. People keep talking about the Bears trading for Breece Hall. People keep talking about the Chiefs trading for Breece Hall. I would actually love both of those fits. Breece is obviously this dynamic runner. He is a fantastic pass catcher. But for Breece Hall, Even though he's on the last season of his deal, I want at least a mid-round pick for him. I got to be honest. I don't know if I could stomach trading Breece Hall away for like a 2027 7th-round pick. Like, are you kidding me? I just don't know if I could do that, right? To be honest with you. So for Breece, that is a player that can instantly boost an offense. I could very well see a bidding war starting for Hall in a couple of weeks, especially if he continues this great play. Now, of course, what do the Jets look like on the offensive side of the football with no Breece Hall and no Braylon Allen for the rest of this, for the rest of the 8 to 12 weeks? I don't even want to think about it, right? Let's just keep it there. So moving on down the list, Breece Hall, you have, some players that might not make a lot of sense as far as who actually is interested in these players, such as Jeremy Ruckert, Allen Lazard, Michael Clemens, Andre Cisco, Tony Adams. Ideally, the plan would be to trade those players. In my opinion, I just don't feel like we can get much worse at those positions, right? If we lose Allen Lazard, is the offense going to take a step backwards? No. If the Jets lose Andre Cisco, is the defense going to go backwards? No. Here's the deal. Who's actually going to be trading anything of value for these players? It's a pretty hard argument. Is it actually realistic to see an NFL team, like a win now team, giving up something of value, giving away a draft asset for a player that's probably a downgrade with every win now team? So those players to me just, hey, they're on the trade block. If you guys want them, cool. That is, I'll definitely entertain offers. And I'm not going to be, holding on to them. Well, we need a 3rd-round pick. No. Those players outside of Breece, I'm pretty much down to flip for anything at this point. And then we have a couple players that could maybe make some sense as far as moving for some better draft capital, right? John Simpson and Jermaine Johnson. Now, John Simpson, a veteran guard, he's on an expiring deal. Will he be back? I feel like he looked better last season, but I think right now he's probably the biggest leader on this Jets offense, outside of Garrett Wilson and Tyrod Taylor. He's the veteran on the offensive line. That's someone who ideally I would like to see back with this team next season, especially considering that Elijah Vera Tucker is a free agent and he's also hurt. Josh Myers, starting center, is a free agent. We're going to have a lot of holes on the inside of this offensive line. So, I don't necessarily mind if we keep John Simpson. I think I'm in favor of keeping John Simpson. I would like to re-sign him to an extension, not some big money extension or anything like that, but just, a fair contract. Nothing's wrong with a fair contract. But if we get to the trade deadline day and he's flipped for a 4th-round pick or something, some sort of mid-round, early day 3, I don't think we could get a 3rd-round pick for him, but like a 4th-rounder for him, I could understand the logic. I don't necessarily need to be sold on that idea. Sorry about that. I ended up moving the car. I was dying in the heat. But anyway, Jermaine Johnson is an interesting player to look at as a potential trade candidate, right? Because you can argue he would be a big boost for a win now team. He's someone who can set the edge. He's someone who has an extra year of control, which in other words means that the Jets can probably get back more for him. Now, of course, with Johnson, I am more hesitant to trade. I don't necessarily want to do that. But if we get a sweet offer, again, you don't have to sell me on the idea. Here's the big name, though. Okay, Quinnen Williams. Could the Jets potentially trade Quinnen Williams at the deadline? And then the plan would be maybe Briggs and Harrison Phillips as the 2 starting D tackles, and then the Jets would obviously get a major package back in return. And another positive would be you're clearing a bunch of money. Is it realistic to suggest a Quinnen Williams trade? I think the answer is yes. But I don't know how I would react to a Quinnen Williams trade. I guess it would depend on the package. I love Quinnen. I absolutely love Quinnen, and I think his game would be so much, he would get so much more recognition if we actually had good, effective edge rushers that were consistently in the backfield. I'm not talking about, Hutchinson, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, but just guys that can consistently get in the backfield, right? Guys that you feel confident, okay, this guy can give you double-digit sacks. Maybe the other one can give you 8.5 to 10 sacks per season. It just feels like year after year, opposing offensive lines just focus purely on double teaming Q, neutralizing him, and yet he's still able to make an impact. Hence why the Jets would get a solid package back in return. I think it's something to think about. Oh my God, but I just don't want to see him go. I really don't want to see Quinnen go. I really, really don't. It would almost kind of be like saying goodbye to a friend who's moving away. Like that's like the type of, that's how I view Quinnen. Like, he's been one of my favorite players, such a good player for this Jets team for years, man, for years in multiple systems, right? Thinking back to, Greg Williams, that defense, Robert Saleh, Jeff Ulbrich, now Aaron Glenn. He's just such a good player that so many teams would love and covet. Now, if we look at where the Jets currently stand, cap space-wise, draft pick-wise, around $91 million in cap space for 2026. That is with Quinnen on the roster, right? That is a ton of cap space. Think about like what the New England Patriots look like this season. They got all these new players, right? Carlton Davis, Milton Williams, Harold Landry, Stephon Diggs. They added so many, not to mention, having top 5 picks in every round. But just purely in free agency, like, they were really able to retool that football team. Granted, they spent a ton of money. The Jets, we were bogged down by the Aaron Rodgers thing, and we're still paying Rodgers into next season, which is pretty frustrating if we're being honest. But the $91 million is $91 million. And again, we do have a lot of expiring deals, so that number should come down. But 91 mil is a lot of cash. And even if you have to spend, let's just call it 25 mil to retain, the players that you want on this roster, right? Like, we bring back an AVT, we bring back a John Simpson, whoever, and maybe another player or two, you still have a ton. You still are in the top half of the league. Right now, 91 million, that's 7th in football. And there are a ton of free agents in this upcoming class that I feel like makes sense for this Jets team, right? Alec Pierce is going to be out there, Jacoby Myers, Juwan Gent. Like, there's a lot of players that I really, really like. And if the Jets have tons of money to spend, I'm not saying throw it all down the drain. Of course, you have to hand out smart contracts, but at least you have the option. You're not like, okay, we're hitting free agency as one of the worst teams in football with $13 million to spend. Horrible. That's a horrible situation to be in, right? But no, the Jets will be in one of the best situations when it comes to free agency, and that is a major, major positive. Now, of course, we do have to look at the draft picks as well, right? Currently, the Jets own their 1st round pick, 2nd round pick, 4th round pick, 5th round pick, 3 6th rounders, and 2 7ths. So a lot of picks on day 3. Of course, you could probably package those, move up if you want, if someone starts to slip or, whatever. Darren Mougey is shown he is down to slide up and down the draft board. We've seen a lot of trades where we have like a lot of pick swaps, Jarvis Brown-Lee, Harrison Phillips, Joanne Briggs, where the Jets are moving around day 3 of the NFL draft. But if we can move on from a player that is not going to be back, alleviating the idea of a potential extension, cutting into that cap space while adding a draft pick, that, for a bad football team right now, that makes sense. I think it makes sense. Like, how nice would it be if we had a 3rd round pick? Think about this for a second, right? We can go back to the Hassan Reddick, Joe Douglas trade. God, if the Jets finish with a bottom 3 pick in football this season, right? They're a bottom 3 team in the league. Top 3 pick in round 1, sweet. Top 3 pick in round 2. Okay, awesome. Those are 2 instant starting caliber players. You were getting a big time player there. But when round 3 comes around, and it's the Philadelphia Eagles selecting where the Jets are at, it's just going to feel like a gut punch, right? Watching the Eagles sitting there on the clock when they're going to, they're going to be drafting a good player there. We'll see what happens. Do you want the Jets to be sellers? I've seen a couple, comments, hey, the Jets should trade for A.J. Brown. The Jets should maybe trade for Devontae Adams. I don't want the Jets to be moving on from more draft capital. I don't. You know, yes, we can afford A.J. Brown. We can afford Devontae Smith. Obviously, what a major, major boost those guys would be. But I am not moving on from a first-round pick this season. No way. I'm not moving on from a second-round pick. No way. Especially with how the Jets have looked so far. That pick could very well be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not moving on from a draft pick like that. That's like a treasure chest, right? That is such a big time asset. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Again, sellers, do you want the Jets to actually be buyers? I would love to hear your thoughts on it, just my 2 cents. But yeah, for me, those are the players that I feel like, for the most part, could be moved. But the stars, the highlighted players, John Simpson, Breece Hall. Oh, how did I forget Michael Carter, right? Michael Carter is an interesting one because he has been absolutely, I hate to say this, he's been horrible this season. Just completely ineffective. He's dealt with numerous injuries. He's currently out with a concussion. But we have a replacement there. So that's someone who, hey, if the Jets want to move on, you know, if the Jets say trade him to Atlanta where he could reunite with Jeff Ulbrich, or they can trade him to, you know, Las Vegas, you can plug him into, you know, Pete Carroll's defense, San Francisco, right? Robert Saleh. You know, if you want to move on from a guy in Michael Carter, I really don't mind getting a non-valuable draft pick. You know, if it's for a 7th, it's for a 7th. Okay, it is what it is, because we're clearing so much money and we have his replacement already on the roster in Jarvis Brown-Lee, who's in year 2 of a 4-year rookie contract. So that player to me is just expendable at this point. But, man, I can't even believe we're talking about this. But anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you guys. And as always, go Jets.